obviously, probably the last time I saw you actually was on Emma, which we did together.
Oh no.
Which is weird because it feels like, obviously that was a long time ago, but we chat, the most active I am on any WhatsApp group is on the Emma WhatsApp group.
I mean, it's wild to think about Emma because, I mean, obviously the entire world just changed so drastically since then. So Emma's kind of the last, like, happy pre-pandemic experience, I guess, that we all really had. Because by the time I got to playing Beth in the Queen's Gambit, I was so tired. It was amazing, but I was like exhausted after a while.
Queen's Gambit was my favourite television show throughout lockdown, and I'm completely obsessed. I told you that. I did text you, but I completely loved it. I guess we'll touch on this probably. It's the sort of thing we should touch on. Variety actors on actors, but the stamina you have to have for a television series is so much. Like, how do you not, like, you look so, like, fresh and under control and, like, nailing it.
Oh, thank you.
How are you not exhausted?
Thank you. Honestly, I started going to bed at 8 p.m. I became a grandma, and I was very content about it because there were maybe 4 straight weeks where I had 4 a.m. pickups every single day, and I just started going to bed at 7:30, and it was wonderful. Do you know what it is? I think, and I'm sure that you agree with this, there are certain characters that just carry you through a job.
Yeah.
Like, it's just almost a compulsion to tell this story where you wake up in the morning and you think, what on earth am I doing with my life? Why am I awake at this time? Like, I'm so tired, I can't possibly create sentences for myself. But there's something about the character that just makes you want to get up, and you feel like you're doing something vital, which sounds ridiculous, obviously, considering the time that we're living in. But yeah, I think it was the character, but also the people around. Like, on Emma, everybody there, like, there were definitely days where I just felt so tired, but every new person that came in was such a breath of fresh air, and you guys were so supportive. You were a nightmare on Emma because you were the only person I could not stop laughing. Like,
you really couldn't handle me.
You made me feel so unprofessional. I couldn't. But from the moment I met you, I was like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. He's going to make me look so bad. Because it was just so brilliant to watch you. And actually, wait, okay, it's my turn to fangirl, please.
Great.
No, you're just going to have to listen to me giving you tons of compliments. But my favourite thing about watching you perform is, I mean, there are a couple of things. One, you inhabit characters so effortlessly. It's like you just sink into them, and your cell membrane just touches whatever it is that person is. Like, you really exude the energy of that person. And everything you do is believable. It's astonishing. I was just rewatching The Crown because I loved it the first time I saw it, but now, like, really just keying into your performance, everything you do is believable, and everything you do is completely natural.
You're the best.
No, I mean it.
I always find it, like, incredibly fortunate, and not to kind of, because obviously I want to talk more about Queen's Gambit, but in terms of Emma, because we're both on that. Autumn de Wilde, who directed the film, I'm not telling you that, I'm telling the wider world. She posted something yesterday, actually, on Instagram, which was a picture of the scene in the carriage, which is the first day of Emma, and you and I kind of came in this studio, and we're in this tiny carriage, and people were, like, rocking it, and we had to do this, like, incredibly kind of, like, quite a dark scene. I mean, it's like, it's
but
sort
also
of funny,
a pivotal scene.
And a very pivotal scene, and I was super nervous and was already a big fan of yours. And I got the same thing with you. It's like, I think it would have been very easy to play that, you know, the Emma role in a slightly broad way, but everything was so specific, and you were so sat in it. It was just such a treat to start that film, you and me just kind of, like, ripping into each other. It was great.
There's no way to describe what having a meaningful partnership with the person that you're acting opposite with, like, what that gives to you, what that gives to a performance, what that gives to you as a person. Because I remember on Emma having a couple of moments where I was like, Josh, I don't think I can do this. It's all too heavy, and I can't.
You run that show, but you've got this kind of great support network around you. But I think what's so amazing, and has been amazing about The Crown, is you're constantly surrounded by these kind of, like, big hitters, like Olivia Colman and Tobias Menzies and Helena Bonham Carter, and they're all sort of like, their tools are sharpened, they've been knocking around for a while, they know exactly what to do and how to play it, and they have the same insecurities we all have, but there's that support system of, like, well, I've been here before, and how did I deal with it before, and all those moments where you have to unpick things. And And so I think because of that, and I had the extreme benefit of having like 2 or 3 episodes in season 3 to kind of get to know everyone. And I knew Olivia Colman a little bit before, and so it's kind of, that was okay. Emma just like came into this show. I think she's done like one other job, and she walked into this role, which is such a kind of huge role for many reasons. It's got all this kind of
incredible
power.
But terrifying.
Totally terrifying. She was the kind of the beginning of fame and celebrity as we know it now. And so I was all kind of prepped for like, I'm going to be the most supportive actor that this actor's ever worked with, and I'm going to be there for her, and if she ever needs advice, I'll be there. Like week 2, I was going to her for advice. I was like, I'm stressing out, I'm panicking, I don't know what to do. She was very original and lots of fun.
And for you?
Oh, he was simply marvellous.
I do think there is something about being supportive and being open, and partly it's because you just want to be nice and you want people to like report back to other people and say, oh, he was nice to work with. But also, I just think, like, selfishly, you benefit from the other person opposite you being the best version of themselves. And I think if you can kind of make someone feel like they're going to smash this and what they're doing is brilliant, and like if you go to them and say, right, let's take this to the next level, then they'll match you and they'll go there. So with Queen's Gambit, what was that company like? Because it was such an incredible sort of group of actors.
It was.
It must have been a
being
dream.
completely honest. Yeah, I was running a marathon at the pace of a sprint 3 times. So by the time I got to Beth, I mean, I think I got really, really sick at the beginning of the job, which I tend to try not to do because, as you know, when you're sick, you just keep working. So it's like, ugh. That group of people was one of those beautiful, serendipitous blessings that you get on jobs sometimes, where every person that was supposed to be there was there, and we were all just intrinsic parts of a puzzle, all working towards the same vision. And it was strange how we all did have the same picture in our mind. Like we were all just making the same show with very little discussion about it. And that felt very important and supportive. But also, I didn't have any, and this is a question I want to ask you, because my relationship with my characters, they're all very varied, but they're very intense and they are incredibly real for me. And by the time I got to Beth, I had no energy to put a boundary up between myself and the character. And so I would wake up in the morning and go, oh, I feel awful. What is this feeling? And then realize, oh, it's her. And you're just going to be in this for the next 18 hours, essentially. And that was wonderful because it meant I was never reaching for any emotion. I've never had a performance before where there was just no trying. It was there. But it was complicated separating my emotions and realizing what was me and what wasn't.
There's so much darkness and sadness with Beth that when I watched it, I remember saying with me and my partner watching it, and I remember saying to her, I was like, oh, I really hope Anya's okay. Because that's like, you were like living it. And I really felt, I think everyone kind of unanimously, when we watched that show, felt this kind of like, she goes through it.
A janitor taught you how to play? Really?
When I was 8.
I imagine. It must have been such a distraction from life in such a depressing place. I mean, you must have been very lonely.
I'm fine being alone.
I'm curious, A, what your relationship to characters is like in general, but B, what it's like when it's a real person. Because I've never had to really do that with somebody who's alive.
There's a sacrifice that I sometimes think you have to make when you start a job.
Yeah.
I don't know if sacrifice is the right word. Maybe that's a bit over dramatic, but there's something about and Prince Charles is a tricky one because in some ways he's a real he is a real person. Yeah. But in some ways, I think because of that, you have to part ways with the real version of it in order to kind of capture something unique or different. But I just think that the sacrifice you sometimes have to make is this piece of yourself. And I remember thinking when lockdown happened, oh, this will be great because it will stop us all from working. I mean, obviously it wasn't great, but in a way I was like, oh, maybe this is going to give us a bit of air to go and what do I like doing? Because I think we do spend a lot of time and it's beautiful, and that's why so many actors are so kind and their mental health is so healthy. is because we're constantly being empathetic.
Putting ourselves in other people's shoes, yeah.
Yeah, totally. But then at the expense sometimes of like, well, who am I? I know it sounds a little bit over the top, but I do think it's a thing.
I knew I was going to have to play Emma and then my character in Edgar's movie before I got to Beth. And honestly, that was potentially the hardest thing about the job, was keeping Beth at bay and going, I cannot even think about that yet. I know that I will get there. I know that I have to do that. But first I have to give these other people that I really care about my attention and time and love and brain, essentially. But by the time I was finished with Beth, I was done. Like, it was a good space for us to part ways. I will always keep her with me because I've never given so much of myself to a character before. It's such a weird thing to do because I usually think about characters as so different from me, and I make it a real point to make them walk differently, to have a different caliber of voice, to laugh differently, to cry differently. I want them to be their own person. But for Beth, it was the first time that I just thought the only way to tell this accurately is to give bits of myself up. And that can be, that's kind of strange now, because I'll be sitting at a restaurant and I'll hear someone say like, oh, she like holds her face the way that Beth does. And I'm like, oh gosh.
No.
Beth, what?
Towns, the guy you're playing now, is underrated. He plays first board for the university team, and last month he came in 5th in Las Vegas.
What's in Las Vegas?
Do you have a thing you do when you finish a job?
I cry on planes.
No, Anya,
I cry hysterically on planes. No, but it's good. It's good crying. My first heartbreak was not a relationship. My first heartbreak was finishing my first job and experiencing that loss of there was a world that existed with a group of people that became my everything for a period of time, and now it's over. And I had no concept as to how to deal with that. And discovering that characters were real for me really helped with that, because at the time I remember thinking, I'm going to have lunch with everybody today. Like, I'm going to see them. What is it that I'm missing? And I realized I was missing Thomasin. I was missing the character. I desperately wanted her back. And I think having that knowledge really helps with releasing characters. And then, I think getting to spend 7 episodes with Beth was good. Any less would have been, I would have felt cheated, or I would have felt like I didn't spend the time with her to make sure that she was okay. I sound mental, but I know that you understand what I mean.
No, I totally
sound
get
completely mental.
Honestly, someone asked me recently about a character I played years ago, and they were like, do you ever think about how they are? And it's like slightly caught me off guard, because the interview, it was like during the madness of like a press junket, and I was a bit like, I think in my head I was just like, first of all, that's a really like kind of meta crazy question to ask me. And I think I gave an answer like, oh no, I don't. I just like finish the job and then I'll go on to the next one. But then I thought about it and I was like, I definitely do it. And it's so weird. But often I think about like the moments where I've really desperately tried to cling on to people around a particular film. And I agree. I think it's about a character. I think it's like, it's saying, you know, you live with this person, you really care about this person, and then you have to say goodbye. And I think the other thing, and what I found, again, that kind of slightly caught me off guard, was like, you know, obviously real Prince Charles, who knows what he's like, but with the character, he's kind of nasty by the end of season 4. And we had this, like, we were going around doing press, and the journalists were like really finding it hard to part me from Prince Charles and being like, I don't like you. You were nasty to lovely Emma Corrin. And I was like, I promise you I wasn't.